So welcome everybody, and Khalid, thank you so much for joining for this webinar. I appreciate the time, the knowledge, everything. It's been fantastic working with
Yeah,
you.
it's been really fun. I mean, just going back and forth, trying to figure out the demos and kind of working with Rider and Syncfusion tooling. So yeah, thank you for this opportunity. It's been pretty fun.
Absolutely. And everybody out there, just so you know, we are going to talk about Blazor a little bit today. We're going to talk a little bit about Blazor, specifically how it's set up. This is more of an introductory thing to Blazor. We decided to go that route because it turns out the target audience, we think, or I think, I may not be speaking for Khalid entirely, but the target audience, I think, is your Windows Forms developers, the folks who need to build a web app, but really don't want to learn JavaScript. And so Blazor is for you. And it turns out I'm part of that demographic. So as I went through the learning curve of getting Blazor up and running, we thought we would just go through that. Lessons learned from Chad, a quick example how to do different things. And then at the end of that, we're going to let Khalid step in and show some of his top 10 or top 11 features of the new C#. And that C# 11, I think that's part of .NET 7, Khalid, is that right?
Yeah, we're really close to the .NET 7 release. I think it's around November 8th is when .NET 7 is going to release. So currently Rider is in early access preview, so you can go out now and try some of the new C# 11 features. Yeah, so I'll be showing some of that so you can kind of get a lay of the land in terms of what's coming up next with .NET and C# 11.
That is perfect. And I want to get my slide back up here. Somehow it got gone. Let's see if it got saved. So Blazor is set up in two different things. There can be and it's gone. There can be a Blazor server, and there's Blazor WebAssembly. Blazor server is, just like that. Well, here it is, actually. Blazor server is where all the work is done at ASP.core at the server, and the client is basically just a dumb box drawing the pictures, doing the click events, stuff like that. And that's cool. It uses a Signal R connection to handle all the data going back and forth so that everything's kept in sync and everything. And then there's Blazor WebAssembly, which is a little more interesting, or I think, and we think, a little bit more interesting than the server app. And it actually compiles out to a WASM, WebAssembly, WASM, and that runs entirely on the browser. So it is running in the browser, not in JavaScript, but in the browser. It's using the DOM to do all the manipulations. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go through getting set up a Blazor WASM app. And a couple things about doing that. You can, and I'm going to go over here and go through a new menu. So you can, if you create a new project, you can search for Blazor. And I'm in Rider today, so I've been learning Rider and did not want to do that. So I've been learning Rider and Blazor the past few weeks, which has been a lot of fun. But cool, Blazor is there's a little trick here we need to look at. And you have a choice when you create new apps. You can create them as and I'm still thinking, you can create them as WebAssembly or you can create them as server. You can't do both, which is really what you need if you're going to do a quick testing, quick prototyping. So again, here you have with the drop-down menu, you have server app, WebAssembly app. And what these actually do, they make a single project with a single solution with a single project in it, which is fine and all, but that's not what we want to do. We want to do a self-hosted Blazor app, Blazor WASM app. So for that, we're back to the command line.
Yeah, we're currently working on kind of exposing more of the templates. Currently, when you run templates for .NET, there's a lot of like flags, and that can be specific to each new template. Again, what Chad is doing here is he's kind of adding some of those flags so we get a 3-project solution, one for the client, which will host our Blazor WASM like front end, and then a server which will host our kind of ASP.NET Core web API, which our WASM front end will talk to. And then a third project, which is a shared project, so you can kind of share the C# objects between the client and the server. And that's one of the benefits of using Blazor, right? Like you can kind of share C# objects. You don't have to kind of do that mapping between JSON, C#, and back and forth. So that's kind of why we're doing this. Okay, back to you, Chad. Sorry.
Please feel free to step in and talk whenever you like, my friend. All right, so here we go. We're loading the app up now, and you're going to see the client server and shared, your basic separation of architecture, UI, server, and then the data layer. And so doing a webinar, it's going to load very, very slow for me, very, very painful for me, but we'll get through that.
Yeah, you have to pay the performance price when you screen share, so it's just how it is, I guess.
Yes, yes. Nothing's for free.
Yep.
And here we go. So let's step in. Let's take a look at the client. And I like to run the project straight up first thing. And that's not where I want to go. I want to go here. So these are your pages. Index is always the default starting page. There we go. And then now, a couple things here. When you run this, you always want to run it from the server. And Rider gives you a ton of choices here. Far too many, I think, but you get to choose here. You want to choose server, and secure, not secure. For this level, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, this is actually a recent change in .NET 7. This is specifically for Mac OS users who, sometimes to like read certificates, you have to read from Mac OS's keychain. So typically on Mac OS, if you don't want to deal with all the keychain nonsense, just run it in HTTP. Yeah, but if you're on Windows, you're probably fine.
Yes, yes. All right, and we're also going to use Entity Framework and SQLite for our database, just to keep this as simple as possible. SQLite is a great, simple database. There's no really much overhead to it at all. It's just right there for you.
Yeah, if folks are familiar with Blazor, this new loading screen is actually just added in .NET 7. So you get that nice little loading wheel, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, spinny boxes are fun. And there we go. So the webinar worked. The application built. Exciting, exciting times. All right, stop it. So first thing we want to do is we need to add some NuGet packages to this. And we are doing Entity Framework, so we're going to add Entity Framework. And my typing skills have not gotten better, Khalid.
It's all right. Search is pretty good on NuGet, so you can mash your way to success.
Yes, and that's what I'm doing here. So we're going to add the SQLite just to the shared project. And all you .NET Visual Studio developers, this is a little bit different, the NuGet Package Manager. Same functionality, it's just in different places and it looks different. I'm going to add a designer because I'm a UI guy. I like looking at pretty pictures. So we're going to do, we're going to let the designer run through this and do some of that here. And we're going to add the core design. We can add this to the shared folder, shared project, which you would imagine. We also need to add it to the server project. The server project is what actually runs. It's the starting point for this whole thing. And it also needs the design. So we're going to get that set up here.
The design library is specifically for the Entity Framework core tooling so that it can kind of build out your schema as you build your data model and you want to create migrations. The design library is really like to figure out all that schema stuff for you. So as Chad kind of goes through the demo, you'll kind of see migrations being added to the project. So, yeah.
And here's a bit that Khalid is very keen on the adding. And I don't mind, it makes sense, but just to let you know, for the purposes of this demo, it does absolutely nothing.
Well, I wouldn't say nothing, but I will say like, so .NET recently added, I guess not recently, but you can install tools, right? You can install them globally on your machine. And sometimes Entity Framework, you can do that if you're only using one version. But what Chad is doing right now is he's installing the tool manifest. You actually, you need to do .NET install tool. You added the word manifest. But with manifests, I personally recommend you add the manifest to your solution into your project. And that way, when you push it up into source control and folks pull down your project, they can basically just restore the same tools at the same version. And you don't have to worry about that kind of mismatch. I think it's .NET tool install .NET EF. By the way, this is one of my annoyances with .NET. I can never remember the order or the naming of anything. So like this is pretty common. If you go this route, you'll probably type the commands a couple times before you get it right. So
yes, yeah. So up until now, I've gotten it right like 4 times in a row. And yeah, well, that's just life.
The demo gods. They just they require sacrifice.
And so what that made for us was this file.
Yep.
And that's it. That's what is used. And again, if you're in a big team, it makes sense. If you're a single developer, you can decide if you want to do it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so we've added everything. Now it's time to put our models in. We're going to keep this pretty simple. Add a directory. And my naming conventions are very much unique and exciting. I like to keep things interesting. Perfect. And the sample DB is going to implement DB context. DB context. Rider automatically knows that DB context was here, and it added my namespace for me.
Oh, the one above it, actually.
Any framework core, yes. Yeah, that one above it. Rider will also create a constructor for me, which is a beautiful thing. And because we're using any framework, and we're going to hard code. We are going to do this right here. So on configuring means when this is set up, I want to do the following. Option, I want to use SQLite. And I want to do something specific about SQLite.
You want to pass in the connection string, right?
Yes, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to say my data source equals, I'm using this because I know ahead of time from practice that database DB is the default database name coming from Entity Framework. So that's what's going to show up here in just a little bit. And I also want to make a DB set. Well, I can't make a DB set yet. I haven't made my actual data yet. Have I?
You could. Rider will just create the class for you if you needed to. So
really, I could do that. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's try it.
Let's watch that happen.
We're going off script.
We are. Oh dear.
Yeah, the thing I love about Rider, it just knows what the naming convention should be based on like the class type. So there's a lot less typing, which is always good. Yeah, just type work order. The class doesn't exist yet, but yeah, just type it there, work order, And then it's a method, so we'll call it. And also make sure set is capitalized.
IntelliSense did not do that for me.
Yep. So now if you click on work order, go ahead and press Alt-Enter and just say create type. There you go.
Look at that.
Pretty cool, right?
That's what I wanted, and it gave me exactly what I wanted, which is super, super cool. It will also help me fill out properties. So if I hit prop, it'll automatically give me this. I can say I want it to be int, and I want it to be ID, and then I want to do another one. I'm going to go ahead and type these in because I only have a couple. String name. Another int. It's just going to be something.
Chad, you're a writer. You're a writer pro. You're just slamming through this class. It's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have everything set up. Let's go through and do some of the cool Entity Framework stuff. We're going to add a migration. And we're going to keep everything in the shared folder for now. Yes. It automatically found my DB context. Let's go. So the migration is just setting up Entity Framework so that it'll know what to do as it builds out your database later.
Mm-hmm.
And look at that.
Huh. Try building the project. Maybe there's something with that. Let's try it again.
All right, so yeah.
So that plugin specifically calls the .NET Entity Framework tooling that we added from the command line, right? So you can run all these commands from the terminal that's inside Rider, but this plugin kind of like wraps that to make it easier for folks who maybe prefer GUIs rather than command line. So yeah, I guess we just had to build the project. So yep, there we go.
Yep, so there we go. So again, this is just a quick migration defining what it is, and then here's a snapshot of everything as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So when you want to build it, you want to update, restore, all that. And while we're here, let's go ahead and just make the database. So update database, and this one we're going to put in the server. And if you don't put it in the server, then you will have issues because Blazor will make one for you in the server app, and it's going to be empty of everything. It's going to be a file name database. That's it.
Yep.
So make sure you put this in the right place. So let's watch it happen.
So yeah, right now it's looking at all the migrations in your project. It's going to take that name and that version. You can see kind of it's prepended with the date and timestamp. And that's kind of how you manage migrations in Entity Framework. They're kind of chronological and build on top of each other. They're incremental. So very cool. I've never seen that, Chad. So yeah, that's awesome. Very cool.
Nice. And here's a database. The database is empty as right now. And because it's empty, I'm actually going to drag one over so I have a full database. Will it let me? It won't let me.
You might be able to control copy, control paste it in. Try that with Control C, Control V.
Let's take a look at this database. And I don't think I copied the new one in, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite features in Rider. The database tools are powered by DataGrip, which is also a standalone database tool. but it's built right into Rider, so you can do things like drag your database in, and yeah, you can kind of look at it. The other thing Rider does too is like it does database inspection or introspection. So if you were to write SQL, you'll actually get like code completion for your SQL statements, which is really, really cool. So yeah, I mean, I guess you could add some rows from here, or if you right click, we can just copy it into the Explorer window in Windows to replace that database as well, if you'd like, Chad.
I'm sorry?
Oh, if you'd like to replace the database, we can just kind of copy it into the directory and kind of replace it. So we have all that data.
Okay, what is also, yes, I can do that. Well, it's only 10 records. It's just, you know, and all the
Then go for it. Let's enter some data. It's kind of cool. So
all right, we'll enter some data here. And we'll enter 12 rows.
oh, I'm honored to be in your data set.
You are number one. You're number one, and you get value. You're only going to get a 10. Sorry.
Oh, all right. Out of a potential what though? I'm curious. Is it 10 out of 10 or 10 out of 100? Because that makes a big difference.
It's going to stay low. It's going to stay low. Maybe 20 might be the high.
Oh well, Carter, congratulations. You've hit you've hit the limit.
I truly feel honored. I'll tell you that.
Nicolai, what are your dogs' names?
Samson. Poor guy was sleeping on my couch, and I said, I cannot trust you in this webinar. I'm sorry, buddy. My other dog's name is Guinness, but I can never spell Guinness. I don't know why I named him Guinness. It's difficult to spell, so.
I spelled that wrong. Well, that is now the official spelling of Guinness, by the way.
Hey, look, no one's here for spell checking, okay? They're here for programming. I think that's how it's supposed to go, right?
Yes, and all programmers are great spellers. Isn't that correct?
You know, another shameless plug for Rider. Rider has built-in spell check, so if you're writing those comments, you know, Rider will save face and tell you like, hey, you may have misspelled this word wrong. You may want to fix it, which is kind of neat.
Rider will do that as well.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Nice.
Little Bobby Tables. We gotta watch out for him though.
Bobby's rough. Bobby is rough. I'll tell you what. In these days is this is why I had planned on copying the data in, but that's all right.
Okay. We're getting some nice banter in. I'm sure the folks appreciate it, right?
Yeah, we're going to go with that. My typing skills are degrading as we go by here.
Yeah, I'm curious. Let's see. Are folks asking things in chat?
Oh yeah, now's a good time for that.
Yeah. So somebody asked, does Rider replace Visual Studio? Rider is a replacement in terms of tooling, if you'd like to think of it that way. But JetBrains, we want you to make the decisions and the best tooling choices for yourself. So Rider itself is actually powered by ReSharper, which is kind of our language server. It's an extension for Visual Studio. So a lot of the same language features that you're used to if you're a ReSharper user in Visual Studio, you're going to have in Rider. So hopefully that answers your question, Bill. Yeah, and Dylan, I noticed Dylan said he's been able to replace Visual Studio entirely with Rider as their primary IDE, which is awesome. So thank you so much, Dylan. That's really cool to hear.
Okay, so I've added a few records, and we're just going to click Update. And there we go. There's all your records. And something we could actually do as well. We can, I could come back into the console here.
Mm-hmm.
and run this, and I get to see all the data. So in hindsight, I also could have extracted out probably an insert statement and just run a great big insert statement. But we're done
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and I'll add one more thing before you continue. The database tooling actually will let you import things like CSVs and stuff like that. So if you've ever had a business person hand you an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, yeah, Rider can do that now. You don't have to write, an import script. You can just kind of do it. So there's a thing, import export, the next section there. So
There we go.
yeah, it's very cool. So try that out if you're into data. Let me know how it goes.
So Khalid, if we talked about this ahead of time, you could already had this done.
Oh, you're putting it on me, Chad? Come on. It's
well,
okay. Yeah, Chad and I are friends. It's fine.
Okay, so database is up and running. The next thing is the controller, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to add a controller class, a controller object to this. And I like calling it something different from the class name. And here we go. Here is our controllers. A couple things about the controllers. You do need to put some decorators on it. And this needs to have a route decorator. In this case, we're going to let it be the default. There we go. So it now knows that this is a route. This is the controller route. When you go up and you click a link, it'll come back to this address. This is how it kind of makes the path through into this particular method in the code.
Mm-hmm.
And we're actually going to also call this get. So it knows this is the get address for it. And I think I don't have to put a route here, right? Did we decide that the other day?
I would put a route there. So the route attribute at the top is like the prefix. So every route inside this controller will get the controller name prefix. And in this case, we just want to hit the root path of this controller. So Chad just leaves it empty. Can I show you a cool trick, Chad, while we're here?
Absolutely.
If you click on one of the attributes and hit Alt-Enter, on top of index.
Right here?
Yep. And then click it and then hit Alt-Enter. Let's hope this works. There should be, oh, I don't see it there. So typically you can put attributes on the same line. Maybe you have to click the second attribute. But anyways, we can kind of continue. I don't want to waste too much time, but yeah. Yep, there you go.
There you go.
So just click that and just kind of cleans things up.
Oh, look at that. That is nice. Very pretty.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a get, and the get is a conserved command on the web API. It does a specific thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that matches the HTTP method. So if, typically most requests on the internet are GET requests. And in this case, it's for reading data. So.
And let's see, if I put in sample DB, is Rider going to give me a internal variable for this? I mean, how do I make that happen?
So press Alt-Enter and then move over to the DB parameter and then press Alt-Enter again and then select that first one.
There it is. Look at that. It added this up top and there we go. Nice.
Yep.
And we don't want to return the view. We are going to return something specific. I'm going to return OK is the answer from the server. The data is OK. And inside there, we're going to give the database work orders. Give it as a list.
Yep. I will say this is for demo purposes. If you build an API, please limit your database queries because right now we're dealing with 10 records. But if you're dealing with 10 million records, this is would not be good. So.
Yeah. So if you're dealing with 10 million records, you'll have a whole separate thing managing all that.
Yeah, your manager might come in with their hair on fire telling you the system is down.
Yes, the system crashed in testing, so that could be fun. All right, and this is done, right?
Well, we do need one more thing. So in
Oh yeah, we do.
In
Yeah.
program CS, so what Chad ended up doing there was for dependency injection, right? So part of ASP.NET Core is now a big part of ASP.NET Core is dependency injection. So in program CS, you kind of have to register all of your dependencies so that when things are newed up by ASP.NET Core, all those dependencies can actually be kind of found and added to those classes. So in this case, we'll be passing sample DB in to the constructor, and that's kind of what Chad did before. So you need to do this just to make sure that ASP.NET Core knows about your controller, so or the database. So yeah.
Yeah, and then okay.
Mm-hmm.
So perfect. So let's get this going and let's watch it work. Yes. And I think, Khalid, if you really want to do your top 11, then I need to speed up a little bit. We're talking too much, I think.
All right, no worries.
So we're going to move a little bit faster through the rest of the pages here. Once we prove this works, and I'm sorry guys, but I like to make sure everything works step by step because it's a pain to go back and debug 14 things you did. And we returned our data came from do work. So that worked. Okay. Now it's time to build a page, right?
Yeah, let's build a Syncfusion powered Blazor page.
And we shall. We're going to have a Blazor component. It's going to be a page, and we are going to call it enter data. And there it is. Enter data at the moment does not a single thing. It's quite boring. But I'm going to do a couple things here to it. Let's get it set up. Let's get it entering data. Let's get data in here. So we're going to create private, if I spell correctly.
I think the O in work order is capital. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
There we go. All right. And then we want to put in a real quick thing. We're going to asynchronous initialization because this is going to be pulling data back from the web. Orders is going to equals, we're going to wait. Get from.
So I think we need to inject the HTTP client
Yes, we do.
At the top of the page. So this is one of the interesting things. So as you type, I'll kind of explain what's happening here. So with Blazor WASM, your application is running in the browser, and the browser is giving your application certain access to things that the browser can do. You need to give it a variable name, Chad. So HTTP client, you might want to call it HTTP client. So on line 3, yep, there you go.
That is what I'm missing.
Yep. So, the most capable WASM host right now is the browser. And in this case, this HTTP client is using the browser's capability to make these calls. And in our case, it's just going to call the web API. So it's pretty straightforward. You can see there, that was kind of a neat feature of of Rider, it can kind of give you auto completion for endpoints. We recognize all the endpoints that are part of your project. You're missing a double quote there at the end, but yeah, it just kind of knows that stuff. So you see that red line on line 13. You might just want to press Alt Enter, and Rider will turn that method into async. So press Enter, and you're good to go.
Yeah, but didn't add this. Okay, perfect.
So the generic argument there, which says work order, should just be work order array on line 13. There you go. Cool.
All right, and just to make this a little more interesting and faster, I'm going to go ahead and add the Syncfusion bits to it. And we're going to see how this works. So we're going to Syncfusion, not Blazor. We're doing this because this is just a proof of concept, make sure it works. And if you get the top level package, it includes all the other controls in it. So we're only going to use the grid and the chart today. And you can, if you like this and it works for you, then you can come back and you can add just the individual widgets you want per page. But we're going to add the entire thing. And while we're doing that, there's a couple things that need to be done to make this work properly. And now we start stepping into a little tiny bit of recognizing that this is JavaScript and HTML at the end of the day. All right, so it is added. Good. A couple things we have to do. We need to go into our HTML file. There actually is one here, and put these paths in there. These paths are relative. These paths exist at runtime. They don't exist now. You can't find them. When Blazor builds, it builds these paths. It builds the style sheets, pulls up that little JSON file there, and all the controls are in it. And that's how the DOM knows to do all the rendering for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A couple other things we need to do is come in and add into the program. The program is where stuff gets built to help the application along. And into here, we're going to add a service for Syncfusion Blazor. So Syncfusion Blazor is now a service. It's the JavaScript HTML is here. I think we might be ready to add it to the page. Let's see. See if IntelliSense shows up for me. Oh, not yet. What am I missing?
You might be missing the imports in the.
I am missing the imports. Yes, that is exactly what I'm missing.
I'm ready to go on Jeopardy, Chad. I can do this. I can answer these questions.
You are the man. You are the next champion on Jeopardy. I feel it.
I think I can do it.
Let's let it think for a minute, I guess. Quotes erasers are here. Index is there. The build is here. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it just might need a second. Let's see.
If this were Visual Studio, I would say we might need to close it and reopen it.
No, they're all there. That's kind of the neat thing about Rider. Once you add like specific components, you can kind of see the highlighting change. So regular HTML tags are kind of that purple color based on this theme, but Blazor components actually light up to kind of show you they're different than just regular HTML, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, we see how the H3 tag is just a little purple. This is a nice teal. Is that teal? Is that what that is?
Sure, aqua. No, I don't know. Let's let the chat decide.
Yes, what actually color is this? There we go. And while we're doing this, let's go ahead and put in our nav menu. We're going to go full bore here and see if this works. And we're going to call this.
We got to vote for Seafoam Green.
Seafoam Green.
Seafoam Green. I might have to disagree with that individual. It's okay. I don't want to lose any fans here. So maybe it is
Seafoam Green. I think it's a little bluer than that, or a little lighter than that, but maybe seafoam green.
Yeah.
All right, so I think let's run this and see what breaks, shall we?
You know what's
And-
interesting? Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Chad.
No, sure. I just want to remind everybody that at some point, this webinar is going to be recorded. It'll be available for watching later. And at that time, there will be a link to this exact sample somewhere around the video. Carter's going to handle all that. I'll give him the sample here in the next day or so. The link where he can go download a sample, it'll be some GitHub link. And you can go and download the exact sample that we went through.
Cool.
Also, it will be added into the video's description on YouTube, just for clarity. So, like, yeah, you'll just find it right below the video.
Okay. And look at that, it actually worked first try.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that, Chad? It's like it's really cool that the Syncfusion control handled the fact that, like, when you initialize the component, there's a web request happening, but initially the orders field or property is null. But the Syncfusion control just handled the fact that if the data is null, it just shows you like an empty row. So that's pretty cool. If you were to write this yourself, you'd have to write all that if else logic just to make sure that, you know, the orders weren't null when you access them.
Yes, that's true. All right, so one last thing we want to show, because this is kind of cool. We're going to add a range navigator to the mix. And that's just going to give you a nice, pretty way to actually filter the data. And this is a range navigator. And I'm going faster now. What we've done is we've determined this is a date-time value. We want to show months in this format of the months. And I'm going to put one series up here. In Syncfusion land, a series is just a collection of points that's going to draw some line or plot something on a chart. That's a series. We have one series here, and we're going to handle the on-range changed event. And what that does, and I'm going to do just a big dump here in just a second. What that does actually, so on-range changed. A couple things we did. We changed our grid, created a whole new data set for the grid. Okay, so it's orders 1 now. And orders 1 is going to equal orders when it comes back from the call.
Yep. We just need to change the name of that. I guess we'll change it to HTTP or HTTP client. Yep.
Yeah, okay. And then on-range changed is going to parse through the data, and anything greater than the start and less than the end. And I'll show you what that means in just a minute. But these are the arguments that come back from the on-range changed event for the range navigator. And I only have one series in here. You can add a series as a collection. You can put as many as you like. I just have one. I can add one later. We'll see. And let's rerun this. Is there a hot start, a hot edit yet for Blazor?
So Blazor server is a lot easier, and we do have Blazor server hot reload support. Blazor WASM is still a work in progress. Stay tuned for that. But WASM is interesting because, again, all the bytecode is running in the browser. So you're actually within the context of, say, Chrome in this instance. So it's still challenging to do hot reload across the board with WASM. So something to keep in mind. Oh, I guess.
Oh, something broke.
Yeah. Let's see.
That. I broke something. Nice.
Did we misname something? I would imagine that's what probably happened.
Yeah. That would make sense. Let's see. Let's see what I did.
Is workdate spelled correctly? Did we name it something else? No, that looks okay.
Did I spell some value correctly? Let's go see what I did. Oh, it's a lowercase value. Look at that.
Mm. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear the chat's thoughts on like what they're considering in terms of Blazor WASM, Blazor Server, maybe traditional Razor pages, stuff like that. So just let me know in the chat. Oh, there is like another chart number going on there.
And I have, look at one of my dates is out of sync, so it comes back to here. But yeah, there's a data. So we're using this range navigator here to actually filter the chart data.
This still blows my mind, Chad. It's so cool. Like, it's so cool that you could take Syncfusion controls and just kind of drop them in and, you know, provide your users with just a great experience so quickly. So it's really cool.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's something we really try to do. And if you look at this, the grid, nothing is defined for the grid control. If you want to go back and add columns, you can define all that. You can make it a lot more complicated. Trust me, it can get a lot more complicated. But this is just about as simple as you can get. Making a Syncfusion chart, show up some data on a Blazor WASM self-hosted application.
Yeah, great job, Chad. This is really fun. I mean, again, you just drop, you know, you pull down some NuGet packages, you drop some tags into a page, and you kind of have a great experience already for folks. And yeah, I'll say Rider definitely helped, right? Helped you write
Rider
this.
was Rider. Actually, I'm starting to like Rider a little bit more than Visual Basic. I might Visual Studio.
Yeah.
I might even start using this as my default going forward. Thank you for the license.
Yeah. No
We'll
worries. Anything for a friend, Chad. So, and reach out to me if you have any questions about Rider. But no, this is fun. So let's check chat first to see if anybody has Blazor questions, and then maybe we could hop over to some C#11. So I'm just kind of looking. Somebody has a question for you, Chad. How is Syncfusion support for things like Tailwind CSS? I don't know about that, but do you have an answer?
Yes. So Syncfusion, we make our own CSS. We don't support anybody else's. We do that on purpose. That's so there's no stepping on toes between their CSS and our CSS. All of our parameters are named so that we did our best to make our parameters uniquely named to us. And when we did that, we went back and reviewed at the time, you know, Bootstrap and everybody else that was out there. So it's our own CSS. We do have, I'm pretty sure we have a CSS theme that's meant to mimic Tailwinds. So if you have a Tailwinds app, you can throw our control in, and up here, instead of using the Bootstrap CSS, which I did, just that's the default. Everybody starts with Bootstrap and then they make it prettier from there if they wish. You would just use the Tailwind CSS from Syncfusion. And any questions on how to edit that, our help documentation will have information there, or our help team just say, this is how the grid looks, this is how I want it to look, show me how to do that. And our team will show you exactly what to do.
Okay, very cool. Thanks for answering that. I think that clears things up. Somebody's asking, is Syncfusion open source?
We are a for-profit company, and we are not open source. You can get our source, but it's not free.
I got you. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, we gotta get paid, man. That's how.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the way the world works.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think the production quality of these webinars? I mean, come
on. Somebody asked, can we use Blazor components to create web components and use them in different projects? Yes, I can answer that. Yes, you can. I mean, Syncfusion is pulled down via NuGet package. So, you know, I didn't see Chad go off and write those components live. Like, he pulled those down. So you can definitely do that. Can I extend components? Chad, I imagine there's a lot of extension points to components to kind of customize them to your needs.
Yes, you can extend Syncfusion components. We don't seal our classes. You can extend them, or you can do just typically CSS is what most people need.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it looks pretty powerful. So I imagine you could almost do anything you could imagine. So, okay. So last thing I noticed in the chat, which I really love, somebody said, who is it? Rick said the color is Miami Vice blue. and I love it.
Miami Vice Blue.
Yeah, I'm just ready to hop into my what did Don Johnson drive? Was it a Testarossa? I'm ready to hop in it with my loafers and get to it. So
I can go with that. I can get behind that one.
So yeah, let's do you want to hop over? Do folks want to see some C# 11 features?
Yes.
I imagine they're going to be a little some are going to be interesting, some are going to be controversial. Oh my god, Rick just posted the Miami Vice. So let's hop over. I'm going to start sharing my screen here, and then hopefully, word of warning, I am not a light theme person. I'm doing this for you folks because I know light theme is typically easier to see on webinars, but I'm typically team dark mode. So just to let folks know. Yeah, here are the 14 features added to C# 11. So if you were to download .NET 7 today and use Rider's EAP, you'll see these features kind of in action, or you can utilize them in your projects. The first one is file scope types. This one's interesting. If you're doing a lot of serialization of data and you don't want those files to kind of pollute your namespaces, you can add this file keyword in front of a class. So it's kind of like the private keyword, but you can only access this file within the same file, or you can only access this class within the same file that it's declared. So if I was to actually go create a new class here, let's call it Syncfusion, and I was to try to say something like, let's create a new constructor. So I called that class JetBrains, and you can see I can't access it because it's file local now. So that's one of the new features. I could see people using this if they're building libraries for, again, serialization and stuff like that. But this one might be a little, interesting. I wonder what folks think. So if you see anything that you have thoughts on, please put it in chat. I'd love to kind of get your opinion on some of these things. What's another thing that I can show you? Because I will say a lot of these features, if we scroll up, they're kind of low-level features. They're going to benefit everybody using .NET 7, but are you likely going to be using it? Maybe, maybe not. So things like numeric int pointers and UTF-8 string literals, those are kind of low-level features. They're nice, but you're likely not going to run into them in most business code bases. So another thing I love is generic attributes. So if you're someone who likes to do a lot of meta programming with attributes and you want to kind of reduce your code, C# 11 introduces generic attributes. Before, I know I was showing Chad this earlier, but if you wanted this kind of stuff, you'd have to say stuff like my string attribute, and then you'd have to say my int attribute. And they're all essentially doing the same thing, but you just need a way to access, the type. So generic attributes, super awesome. I'm glad they're in C# 11 now. Another feature I think you're going to use a lot, especially if you're a Rider user, is raw string literals. So now you can put a triple double quote, and you can actually type any kind of language inside of that raw string literal. You can include double quotes. You can even do string interpolation in here, but using Rider's language injection. So if I get rid of this, you'll notice that the text kind of lost its syntax highlighting. Rider has language injection, and I'm telling this block of string that, hey, no, you're actually HTML. And the nice thing is we get tag completion and all that kind of stuff in here. So if you're writing a templating language or something like that, and you just need to kind of inject, a specific type of language, raw string literals with Rider's language injection, I think, is going to be kind of like a game changer for a lot of people. Another thing I think you're going to end up using are required. There's a new required keyword now that you can put on properties. So what this does is previously you'd have to kind of create a constructor and force people to kind of set the value in the constructor. You'd end up with a lot of like constructor overloads. It adds a lot of code complexity. The required keyword just makes it super clear as to what properties are required before you can actually start using the object. So here I have my updated class, which has a required property. If I comment this out, you can now see that I have an error, and it's saying, hey, you need to set this name, which I think is pretty cool. All right. What else can I show you? I already showed you that. Let's say
the pattern matching was pretty cool. Yeah,
yeah,
there you go.
pattern matching is really, really cool. So now you can actually pattern match on string constants, and you'll get a read-only span of characters. And what you can do with that is I have this really, really awesome string. It's just facts. Come on, people. No, just joking. But I have this string and I can pattern match and say, hey, does this string have the word awesome in it? So previously you'd have to do substring. That would pull out the string value, and it would not be very easily read inside of a code base. But in this case, we can just kind of use the range type. Actually, I showed this to Chad. This is a really neat feature. So Rider has postfix, so you can always do this. So I just did .var, and now I've moved the range out into its own variable. I could do things like that now. So we can go back. But range variables, they're end exclusive. So that's why you can see here I have the numbers. It really only goes to 16. But I want to include 16, so I go to 17. And that's how ranges work. The other thing that I think is really cool is list patterns. I think you'll end up using this. If you're a fan of LINQ, this might be an option for you if you have collections that you kind of want to understand their basic structure. In this case, I have two variables. One is an odd collection and one is a Fibonacci collection. And you can use the is keyword to say, hey, does this collection look like this? So you can use the constant. So in this case, we're using 1. ... is basically any number of elements from 0 to whatever items. So in this case, do we have anything between 1 and 3, including nothing? And then do we have the value 3? And then we basically, any single element after that, does something exist? So in this case, this matches. And for the Fibonacci sequence, that also matches because we have 1, 3, and then a value afterwards. And then this is just to show that you can kind of change the values there. So yeah, those are some C#11 features. I'll scroll back up so you can kind of see all of them. And like Carter and Chad said, we'll include a link to this project so you can kind of see these things out. But I will say you will need to download the latest version of Rider, which is currently in early access, to see the C#11 features in action. So, but that's really it. I don't really have anything else. So I'll stop presenting and then we can kind of wrap up, Chad.
Very good. Very good. Awesome. So I'm kind of finished too. Thank you everybody for coming. We appreciate it. This has been a fun process going through the whole thing, and I've enjoyed it a lot. Again, Khalid, thank you so much for joining me on this webinar.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been really fun, and Chad and the folks at Syncfusion and Carter, they've been really great. So thank you again. It's been awesome.